last year I did a test. We released everything online the week before.
Okay.
And sold what we normally. Are you recording this? I hope.
Oh yeah.
I hope you are.
That's gonna make its way into something somewhere.
That's
that might be the promo for this episode. Is just
that is just.
Hey.
Hey everybody, it's Dov. Welcome to DKE Toys TV. We have a great show for you with our co-host Janky and Scott, and Ian's lurking here in the background. And our special.
Sorry, I AO'd.
And our special guest today is Jack from Vinyl Pulse.
Hey, how's it going?
So, what's going on, dude?
Well, I just got back from 5 Points, which was in New York City.
How was that?
It was good. Yes, in case I know the thing everyone wants to know is, was there air conditioning? Because it wasn't last year. The answer is yes, there was.
Wow.
And honestly, it was a lot cooler this weekend than last year, which freakishly was like 90 degrees outside.
Nice. Now, for all the people who are watching who I've been living under a rock and don't know who you are, can you just tell us who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Jack Muramatsu. I run Vinyl Pulse, which is a designer toy, art toy news blog. I've been doing that since the end, basically April, but the end of March of 2005. So I think that's 18 years and change, something like that.
Wow.
Were you the first blog out there doing this?
No. So, gosh, it's terrible. I don't remember. I want to say it was like Toy Tunes. That's wrong, but there was another blog that kind of petered out.
You're the longest lasting blog. Should we say that?
Oh, I guess so. I will say Toys Are Evil started around the same time, but I think for like the first half year, he was doing just straight like mainstream action figure stuff. But about the same. About the same.
We should
And
probably
who would win in a fist fight?
Yeah,
oh man.
Sure. I'd have to go all the way to Singapore.
We'll have a fist fight, yeah.
So, were you a collector before you got into vinyl toys?
Oh, not really. I mean, I had some Star Wars figures as a kid and stuff, but that was just, like kids having toys, right? I didn't really collect. I collected a little bit of comic books here and there, but no, I mean, I really started collecting, vinyl toys, designer toys.
And so what was it about designer toys that made you, I mean, that was early on, like 2005 was,
yeah,
that's sort of like, they say it's 1999 where like Michael Lau and Cause and, did their stuff, but there was 5 years of there where no one was paying attention. You know what I mean? It was like,
that's right. Yeah. Unless you were really tuned in to the Hong Kong scene, right?
Exactly.
Like really early.
So
yeah.
How did you get into it, and why someone who is not a collector all of a sudden became enamored with designer toys enough to like devote such a huge chunk of your life to a blog? And
yeah, so I mean, that's sort of a weird question. It's a good question though. So I found out about designer toys, believe it or not, from reading. I was going to UC Irvine at the time. I was a grad student. And I looked through a copy of Import Tuner, which is like one of these, like, people were modifying like Honda Civics and stuff and lowering them and tricking them out, right? It was sort of a thing. It was a phase for a little while. And definitely at UC Irvine, because it's like half Asian American, at least half Asian. And so I saw there was this crazy toy in there. I forget what it was. It was some duck toy or something, crazy thing from Hong Kong. And I was like, wow, what is that? And so I started looking around and I saw some Dunnies that Tristan Eden Voodoo Dunnies had sold out. So I bought one on eBay. I was like, oh, I wonder how much they are, like $20, $30. They're like $100. I was like, oh my God, $100. But it was just so cool. So I bought it. And then kind of wanting to just know all about this, I started looking for information and there wasn't much. So I thought, and blogging was sort of a thing that was taking off. So that's kind of cool. But people were mostly blogging about their personal life, and I was like, oh, I'm not doing that. I have no interest in doing that. So I was just like, I'll do this toy thing because that seems cool, right? So
Come
that's
on,
what I
that
did.
would have been a great blog about your personal life.
Oh yes, sure it would have.
I love that you
Nice.
pimp my righted your way right into to toys. Like,
Yeah, kind of, yeah, Importuner. And you know what was strange is that section of Importuner that I saw it in was mostly like stuff you could buy, but it was like really usually focused on cars, right? Or car automotive things. So they just had this designer toy in there, and I was like, whoa, what is that? Because it just looked like nothing I'd ever seen before. So yeah.
And do you consider yourself a collector? Even though you're a member of the press, do you
Mhm.
consider yourself a collector? Do you actively
Yeah.
pursue stuff?
So I mean, I'm a collector. I have like 12 to 12 cases, and way more toys are in boxes than would, but you know, way more toys than will fit in the display area that I have. But on the other hand, I'm not a collector in the sense of really like curated stuff. Like I see your shelf back here, you have all the Ronald toys, and you're Ronning with them.
Yes.
He
And-
just filled that out last week.
It's true. If you
Sitting
watch
vacant.
if you watch
But
the
I've been
previous
to Dove's
episodes,
house. He has a
yeah.
pretty serious collection of both toys and art. I would say I have a lot of toys. I tend not to buy too much of any one figure or even one artist, just because I've always wanted to get, you know, a little bit of each just so I could experience that. So yeah, I'm a collector, but maybe not in the classic sense. I don't know. And these days I kind of just buy what appeals to me. I don't actively hunt stuff.
Do you get a lot of free toys being a member of the press?
I do. Did you ask that question on purpose or no?
I think I ask all my questions on purpose.
Okay. So
On
the
purpose.
reason I asked that is when I started doing vinyl pulls, I was supposed to be looking. I was graduating, you know, with a PhD, and and so I was looking for a job. In the meantime, I was blogging because that was more fun, kind of. And one day I showed my then girlfriend and then eventually fiance and wife, Francine, I showed her this blog. She's like, yeah, what's that? And I'm like, oh, well, I write for it. Oh, someone's letting you write on their blog? No, it's my blog. Right? She's like, gave me this puzzled look. And I said, you know, I mean, I've been doing it for like a month or two, right? I said to her, you know, I don't know, it's kind of cool. People seem to like it. And hey, maybe someone will send me a free toy, right? So I could like talk about it. And she looks at me and she says, no one is ever going to send you a free toy. And so when he started coming, I was like, oh, I don't know. Look, it kind of
Famous
worked.
last words, huh?
Yeah.
So anyway,
In your
but yeah,
face.
occasionally.
Wow. I'm
No.
gonna mention that to Francine next time I see her.
Okay.
She was not a believer. So you've been doing this
Not a
for
believer.
18 years.
I have.
How do you decide what to cover? Are you still looking for inspiration? Like what?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I mean,
You
I
have a
would
lot of
prefer-
commentary about my questions.
Sorry.
We should have a blog about
My
people
bad.
giving interviews to how
I didn't get the
It's-
memo from the producer beforehand, and I wasn't supposed to say that. But duly noted.
It's actually Dove in the hot seat.
Yeah.
You know what, on this show is you can say whatever you want. I just thought it was
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think it's cute you think we have a
Um,
producer.
Yeah. What was the question? What was the question again?
like how you decide what to post.
Oh, right,
Is it
right,
what inspires you, or
Yeah, definitely what inspires me. So I try to find, I would prefer to post stuff that's really exciting and new or fresh, right? And
Mm.
sometimes I get really excited with something like, oh, you know, the reception's going to be really great. And sometimes it's amazing. Other times it's like, Jack thinks that's cool, but no one else on planet Earth does. So yeah, but the other thing is I try to avoid certain things. I try to avoid stuff that might be kind of inspired, but the production level just isn't there yet. And maybe the artist will get there at some point. But I don't like posting stuff if it doesn't look sort of have a certain level of polish. And it's just my thing. I know other bloggers don't agree with that. And then I won't post stuff if I feel some people disagree with this too, but if it's a blatant ripoff of somebody, I try not to post that just because, you know.
well, so you don't ever post resin action figures, right?
No, I do. from time to time.
That was a joke. And I have
Oh,
to explain
sorry.
the joke because of the poor
Sorry.
quality and because of
Sorry.
ripping people off.
No, but that's part of the appeal of those, right?
Right.
Actually, the quality's gotten pretty good. So
So what?
so maybe
So-
that's a down thing, right? Is it punk anymore when it looks like it could have been made in a factory in China? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about that. So
Scott's thinking. He's thinking smart.
he's like, So given that, you started when there was definitely, a fetish for vinyl. And then the resin, if you recall, when we started out, like resin was kind of not really accepted. Do you remember your first impression of, let's say, like the Sucklord and these guys that were making resin action figures? Were you inspired, or were you like, this is gonna go away like that?
No, I mean, wow, I'm trying to remember how I thought about it. It definitely was the case that sort of vinyl was like at least my preference and a lot of people's preferences. I think I didn't think of like the action figures, the bootleg action figures, when you recall, do the kind of things that Sucklord was doing.
Mhm.
I didn't think of it. I thought it was kind of funky, but I don't think I really thought of it in terms of vinyl versus resin, because it just felt like a different kind of thing apart from the medium, right? It was a carded figure. I didn't think it was really going to go away. That was never, I didn't think that. I just thought it was kind of funky. I remember going when was this? I don't even remember when it was. Pretty early on, I went to visit Sucklord in his lair / studio in Chinatown. And that was kind of interesting. It was very different. And
Get on the pole.
then after that, I remember him. He's like, "Oh, let's go to." There was a I forget what it was. There was
image of Jack on
Jack
the
on the
pole. Right
pole.
now.
yeah. There was some show at the showroom, which I don't know if you remember that showroom
Yeah.
NYC, which Lev ran. And at the time, that was kind of like one of the hot spots for toys, right? Toy shows.
Mhm.
And so we went there. He's like, "Let's go walk over there." It's not that far. It was far. But the other thing is, I thought I was just gonna go walking with, but no, I went with Vector, because he put on his Vector mask and just walking around wearing. I'm like, "You're wearing that outside?" He's like, "Of course, man." I'm like, "Okay." Yeah, Vector.
That's fantastic.
And then he
Well,
handed
I
you a
don't think I
slave
have a
Leia.
photo of it. But
He hands you a slave Leia. And he
yeah,
goes, "This is your outfit.
yeah, that's
We're
right.
going out
That's
together."
right. No, thankfully, no. But yeah, I still remember that. I was like, "You can't wear that outside walking around." It's like, it's New York City. Of course I can. Yeah.
That's amazing. So I mean, the scene has changed. I mean, how many years? It's
It
2000. It's like 18 years since
Yep.
then.
Yep.
And the scene's technically over 20 years old. But when
Easily,
did
yeah.
Kid Robot open the first store? Was that also 2005?
4, maybe? I don't know. They were at Comic-Con San Diego in 2004. I don't really remember the exact timing on that.
So we're looking at like this was a thing for at least 20 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was sort of like, there was the other guy in New York, Jaquan. He had a store before.
360 Toy Group.
Yeah, so that was a few years before. But
He's making toys again, too.
is he really?
Yeah, he is. So, I forget
Is he
the
actually
name
going
of
to sell
his-
them to people?
Like he did
I'm-
a toy with Edison Chen that was at DesignerCon. I forget their name at the moment, but he's slowly starting to do some toys again.
Nice. I mean, I've sold some stuff for the guy in the past when we were distributing. We got along great, but I know that there were some people who he's described like the interaction of like Paul Budnitz showing up to a store and then like opening up his own store, that whole like. But then the store was not open for anyone just to walk in. It was like closed all the time. Like you had to know.
You had to be
him and-
cool.
You had to be cool.
Secret password, handshake.
I wish I could get away with that. That'd be amazing.
You're
Yeah.
just closed all the time, though, Dov. No
But I
one
mean, the
does.
toy scene was really different when he was doing that kind of stuff, right?
That's
so
true.
it sort of made sense, right? It was kind of an underground sort of thing. And maybe he sort of had that underground vibe a little bit.
Totally. But Janky, to your point, the store is open 24/7.
That's
It's
true.
at dketoys.com/store.
Oh. Nice.
it is very interesting being in a business location and not being open to the public, because
Right.
Google does not have a listing for what we do.
I love the drive up people, the people who show up and they're like, I want to shop. And it's like, no,
Like,
we're not a store.
and then I want to keep a list of like all the things where people call like, hi, do you sell Pokemon cards? Like, no, it's like, hi, do you have some sort of like, when like those little racing cars, not the scooters, like whatever it is, like, people are like in the phone book and they're just calling, looking for the Christmas gift. Like,
Do those exist still?
What? Yeah,
That is
what I
a
mean.
prank
books?
phone call. That's a prank phone call channel waiting to happen.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
There was a guy, Matt Besser, that was from Upright Citizens Brigade. He must have had one number off. I think it was when AOL gave out all that free software. And I think his number was like one number off away from that.
That's bad.
So he was inundated with calls for tech support, and he would just sit and fuck with people and give them bad tech support.
Wow.
Like, he's like in the middle of like talking to this one guy, and he's like, holy shit, there's a fucking car accident outside. This guy's hanging. Oh my God, he's dead.
That's amazing. There's this one guy I follow on Instagram now. He's a comedian. It's like Palmer. Did I send you what's that guy's name? I sent you a thing from him, and he just creates these fake websites, almost like the Yes Men did like 20 years ago.
Palmer
But he
Trolls, I think.
Palmer Trolls, yes. So funny. So he's creating like these fake chat GPT these fake chat GPT websites, and people go up there and then they type in, and I guess the text comes directly to him. I would like, a chicken doing this and this, and then he'll just reply, do you want a fat chicken or do you want a skinny chicken? That's not exactly what he said, but he'll just like ask these really like dumb questions. And then he'll say, what's your time frame? And people are like, now? He's like, okay, I'll get to work on it, but it might be a little while. And then he'll just draw something like a stick figure on a piece of paper. And anyway, this guy's hilarious.
That's hilarious.
I think he's a stand-up comedian, but you should follow this guy.
Awesome.
Palmer Trolls.
That's fantastic.
He makes fake YouTube or fake Facebook pages for corporations.
Right.
People complain about the corporations. He responds as the corporation from the fake page, and his page looks so that people think it's actually the company. So he gets in these arguing matches with people. It's really great.
That's
really
so good.
I think my favorite story was the one about the cheese, and it had something to do with like someone supporting Donald Trump, and then and Costco decided not to carry the cheese. So someone complained to him, and then he just tagged the other companies as like, you can't get this cheese, but you could get this brand and this brand and this brand. And then those brands actually replied and said, no, you can go make your own cheese. And like this American cheese company, Velveeta, responded. It's like, keep your cheese, not for us. Thank you.
It was pretty
That's
great.
amazing.
Yeah,
That's
he's
amazing.
really funny.
Very funny. So, Jack, what do you think the state of the scene is today, as someone who's been in it for almost 20 years and watched?
What's the pulse?
Yeah, what's the pulse? Very good, Scott. Very good. Yeah, I mean, I guess there are a lot of answers to that, So I mean, I think just based on what I hear from people that have, make toys and sell toys, retailers and brands that produce toys, things aren't going as well as they did. When the pandemic hit, I think everyone was like, "Oh, well, there goes toys," but actually, it was sort of the opposite. Whereas there was like this boost because people had stimulus money, they were home. They weren't going to spend money on going to the bar or whatever, or doing all the things they used to do on the weekends. So they, bought toys and bought art, among other things. And that kind of petered out sometime in 2022, maybe even 2021. And it doesn't seem like it's really come back. I don't know if things are dire, but they're definitely, I talked to at least one brand that was telling me that they were purposely that they had sort of were stockpiling releases and we're just kind of like releasing them very slowly, trickling, because they feel like that makes more sense. If they release them all at once, they're just not going to sell very well. So they're kind of like biding their time a little bit to try to hope that the market gets stronger. I mean, I think the other thing is that at least at like 5 points, which is a little skewed, it's sort of like Eastern vinyl or Asian vinyl is the thing, and maybe not so much Western vinyl, but maybe that's not that much of a shock.
I think that market in general has exploded, right? Like when in the early days, it was just like 3 or 4 companies, right? It was like Reelhead and Bounty Hunter, and I don't know who else.
Right.
Like,
Gargamel. It really has.
You could count like on one hand, and now it's like there's literally hundreds of manufacturers making stuff. If they made one toy or a whole line of toys. So
right, and the whole blind box explosion and stuff.
Well, the blind box explosion is that whole, what is it, Pop Mart and all that stuff. That's like very different than when I was in the game.
It is.
I mean, that's like a multi-million-dollar industry. Shipping, like, I mean,
for the ones that are still alive,
right? But right, but most of the people that are carrying that stuff are not really designer toy stores anymore. Like most of the people that we sold to over the past, since 2005, like are not there anymore.
Yeah.
So
right. One of the things that struck me is, I guess I can mention them by name. So when I visited like My Plastic Heart, one of the things.
Oh, you can't mention them on the show.
Bleep that out.
We'll bleep it.
Yeah, sorry. Again, wasn't handed like producer rules. What I can and can't say, but anyway, so
it's totally fine, Jack.
The
only thing we bleep is Sucklord's actual name, which you said earlier. I'll have to bleep.
Oh, I did.
You can say whatever you want.
Oh, okay.
That's just a running joke, but now we can just bleep My Plastic Heart as a joke also.
Okay.
No, please don't. Everyone out there, you should shop at My Plastic Heart. They've been doing
so
it a
they're
long
in New
time.
York City. I visited. I've been to theirs definitely. I've been to their store a lot. Most of the time that I visited, it was in the Lower East Side. But they moved during the pandemic. They moved to a really cool spot in Greenpoint, which is in Brooklyn. But one of the things is that obviously I didn't visit them during the pandemic, and then I visited them for the first time last year. And one of the striking things is just what they have on their shelf. It used to be they had a lot of Western vinyl and a lot of larger vinyl, like 6-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch. They have very few big figures anymore. The average size is probably like 5 inches, because they have a few 10-inch, but it's almost all blind box, right? I mean, that's really at least that's kind of the industry now. It's moving more towards that. Yeah, so it's really striking to see how different it is.
How many artists and companies, Western companies, are making vinyl toys now? Like, it's very few.
Not very many. Yeah, not very many.
Yeah, it's and if they are, that's like a small company or just an artist themselves that's made like one thing.
Yeah,
it's not like, I mean, who's left that is regularly producing, 3D Retro's semi-regularly coming up with stuff, and
UVD, Strange Cat, Martian,
right? So I mean, that's right now that's like the big 4.
Kid Robot,
fine, but mostly
funny plushes. Oh, sorry,
comes from like South Park stuff. You know what I mean? It's
yeah. Yep.
That is not what I would have predicted 10 years ago. You know what I mean? That's but it goes in waves, and it does go in waves. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, when you're talking about Western vinyl versus Eastern vinyl, are you talking specifically produced Eastern, or are you all talking also things that feel like Eastern vinyl? Because we're seeing a lot of vinyl toys from Brazil and other places.
Oh, that's a good question.
That have that feel. They're not Safari, but
Well, everything is made in the East, but when we
I mean, sort of style.
That's what I'm asking.
The style, art style, right? Yeah, that's primarily what I mean.
The Western vinyl would be like Gary Baseman and Ron English and Frank Kozik, like
And that's the other thing, you know, in the beginning, a big part of the designer toy, and then it sort of people started calling it art toys, was because so much of the early stuff, at least here, was based on, you know, painters and illustrators like Gary Baseman and Tim Biscup taking their original, because they were doing character-driven gallery art and making vinyl toys out of it, right? That kind of thing is faded pretty heavily. There are still people doing that, but it's few and far between now.
I mean, I notice even from the creators in our scene that are moving towards vinyl, it's all very Eastern inspired. You know, it all feels, you know, from M1 or these other, you know, areas. So it's I've only started collecting vinyl in the past, you know, 5 or 6 years. And even then, my collection is fairly small. So I'm really new to the vinyl world, and I find it fascinating, but also a little terrifying.
Well,
definitely.
I think the fascinating thing for me when I transitioned from selling like Star Wars toys, I mean, I still sell Star Wars toys, but when my focus went from like 100% like vintage collectibles into designer toys, the amazing thing about the scene was that there were artists who had no track record, who just came up with an interesting 3D object, and people were interested in solely on the aesthetics. They saw it and I was like, that's cool. Yes, there were the people, the Baseman, the Biscups, and the Ledbetters that had, you know, art careers. But then there were people, and these are the kind of people that would come to us, the person who just made one toy. And sometimes it wasn't good, right? But sometimes out of the blue, someone just made a 3D object that just worked. And the market was just, the people collecting were open to anything cool. Like as if it was aesthetically cool, it did well and it sold out. There was a lot of crappy things that also sold out, but I think that has shifted to the whole, you know, kaiju and Sofubi world, where those people are collecting monsters. Right, and it's not so much yes there's people who are into like, you know, mutant vinyl hardcore, they're into whatever the artist they're into, but if you create a rad monster, there are people who want to buy it because it's rad. So I think that group of people is really focused on the aesthetics. I mean, there are still the brand people, you know, like I collect this artist, I collect my bus head, I collect you know, whomever. But if you're a nobody and you make a really rad, like wicked monster with a cool paint job, like people are into it.
People are, and I mean, it's different for the different communities, right? It's definitely true of sort of the Sofubi kaiju, for lack of a better term, monster like subgenre, whatever. But also, I think that's the idea that the visuals are what matter, and not so much like a back history of who you are or what you've done. I think that's extremely true of the sort of much larger market of sort of kawaii, you know, super cute rainbow kind of joke, right? Rainbow translucent toys. That community, for the most part, is just based on the visual, right? Sometimes the artist isn't even really well known. So as long as it's not badass monster, but it's a cute, sort of adorable thing that people just have to have, then that applies too, I think.
Because I remember I was at DCon, it was either 2016 or 2017. I think it was the second or third year I set up. And I was with Akashic Records. That was the year we met. And our little area, we combined all our booths. So it was Brian Gummon, Monsterfoot, Slave One, Akashic, and me. So Gummon was fairly well known at the time in the, you know, the scene, especially for painting. And then Monsterfoot had a good following, and Dave was just sort of coming up. And then I'm doing my Severed Limbs and whatever I'm doing. And you would see dudes walking down the row, you know, these Japanese businessmen with just giant wads of money, and it's like Gummon's table, pull off a wad, he'd buy something from Monsterfoot, buy something for Dave, look at my stuff, nod at me, walk up to the, you know, so being a present guy in the middle of like a group of Sofubi guys was a very interesting experience. And watching the Sofubi guys, the old school ones in particular, like, you know, they were friendly to me, they didn't care. But then you've got someone like Dave Akashic, who was brand new at the time, and they were still willing to take a jump on some of his pieces because they were cool. So
I think if they're cool, like, and they, they resonate and they feel like, it just feels like it's going to fit on your shelf. Like, I think they go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we were talking before, you were asking me, Dov, about like, are you looking for like inspiration? And I think in a certain sense, toy collectors are, right? What got them into collecting this as opposed to collecting Star Wars was it was so different, right?
Right.
And people hadn't seen it. So if they get that feeling again, they're gonna buy it, right? But I feel like that feeling as time goes on is more and more sort of elusive, right? Just because you see more and more stuff.
Sure, and that's happening to me in the resin scene. I mean, definitely, like, you see things and you're like, okay, I've seen that, but the other thing that someone did 10 years ago sold out and is not available because everything is so limited, and then they make something and I'm like, I don't know if that's going to sell, but then people jump all over it because they've never seen it before, because we're already like, I can judge it sort of by the people that I knew that were collecting psychedelic pieces in the beginning.
Right.
And from what I can tell, of all of those guys, all of the galactic jerk bags, that were on those that were on the message boards, virtually everyone has sold their psychedelic collections. I mean, they just got to a point where everything you bought for $30 and $40 is now worth $100, $200, $500,000, and they're like, okay, time to sell. I'm gonna go put a down payment on a house, kind of thing.
Right.
And all the original collectors, I know a couple guys that have a handful of pieces left, but most have sold everything.
Okay.
And now we're on like the second or third generation. Now he's got a whole, and what's interesting is the old work is getting gobbled up. If you look on eBay, there's not like a dearth of material out there, and the stuff that's out there is priced really high. So
okay.
I mean, that doesn't help personally. I mean the Sucklord, but see what I did there?
Did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Intentional.
Why you gotta blow it for me, Jack?
Oh, sorry.
On sale now.
So right now, what Ian's doing right now is he's posting a bunch of new old stock. So we mentioned, like, we buy collections from people. We do buy estates and giant truckloads of people's collections of mainstream toys. But every once in a while, someone shows up with a cool collection of resin toys that we sell. The stuff that we've sold before, or stuff that we haven't. So Ian right now is just posting a bunch of sold out stuff, and I'm just going to show a couple things, like 4 or 5 things. But the next show, we're going to have Robert from Screws back on, and we're going to do our full show where we do a full reveal of, like, I don't know, maybe close to 100 different one-of-a-kind pieces that we're posting. But this Mallow piece is on the site right now.
That won't last very long.
Yeah,
that's one that you sold, right, Dov?
It's one that we originally sold. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, most other people don't do this, but we actually write in the description, like, if we're selling it for $100, we write, like, if the photo is the actual photo or if it's a stock photo, if we describe the condition, and then we tell you what the original price was. So if it was originally 65 and we're charging 95, we're sort of being very upfront about that. So like, this is sold out. And
that's cool.
So we have this tug of war from Rika.
I remember that.
Rika.
Yeah. There's a new tug of war up on the site too, but it's always fun when one of the older ones pop up.
Rika does some really cool stuff.
Yeah, he's the best.
There's this Killer Bootlegs starting lineup, Kenny Powers.
Those are great.
That's so great.
The funny story about this is that this was, I mean, if you want to talk about how stuff changes hands, is that this was an item that we featured on a show like this because we bought it in a collection, I think from a state that we actually cleaned out the whole house, or this kid had died, and his mom sold us the house full of stuff, and then we sold this piece, and then it has since been sold back to us, and now we are offering it again.
And then that kid died. It's a cursed toy.
It's a cursed toy.
Oh no. Oh no.
Look, it comes with a chicken.
It's like the ring,
Are you talking the same exact figure, Dov?
Yeah, this very figure.
See?
Because I know the collector bought it from us like within the past year, And I know,
Okay.
yeah. Here's a toilet
Dov will
worth
also
piece.
sell you a monkey's paw.
Great. Yeah.
A fortune-telling devil machine.
I'm not superstitious, but I don't know.
The cursed Kenny.
Here's a toilet worth from Random Skull. This is interesting because it says 1 of 1 artist proof. So this means that I think we sold out of this, and then the customer was, I guess, frustrated and contacted the artist directly and said, "Hey, do you have one?" And then we sold them.
Oh,
one
that's
of the
cool.
personal artist proof.
See, so that means that person busts Random Skull's balls unmerciful to
Yeah.
get that toy. He had to have it so bad. And then what was that the guy that died? Or was
No,
that the
different
okay.
collection.
So then he was just like, yeah.
Oh,
okay,
I remember
got
this
it.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, this was Manny's special ed toys with artwork by Mark Pingator, and this is one of my favorites. This is firing on all cylinders for me. I mean, this is Star Wars, this is political, this is Garbage Pail Kids, this is a resin toy. It just Mark Pingator's got it.
See, that was Dov's checklist on the back.
Yeah. That was So anyway, there's some stuff on the site right now that you can go look at, but by the time the next show airs, whatever, the Tuesday following,
and if you want something, you can't just show up and shop around. It's not like that, everybody.
So
you can try. Like, people come to the door and they're like, knock, knock, like, "Hey, do you have remote control cars?" I'm like, sorry.
Yeah. Do you sell Pokemon? Like, well, we have a Pokemon, but it's got a toilet for a head.
Can people shop if they make appointments? Is that a thing or no?
No, there's no place to shop. I mean, everything's in boxes. It's not like we do have an option that if people buy stuff on the site and you want to save shipping, you can, come pick up your order. Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
And then,
But
people
this isn't supermarket sweep,
Yeah, it's just not set up. I mean, everything is
I get it.
in file boxes. Like, for someone to shop, they'd have to
You don't just let them go through it all?
I mean, you could if you really wanted to, but it's not fun or
You heard it here. If you want to, if you really want to, you show up
You
and go
can.
touch everything. Go rifle through all the boxes.
You're gonna
Ian will show
that.
you. Ian will show you how he's categorized everything, and you can touch all the things.
Move things into random boxes.
Yeah, move them around.
I guess it just depends how much you want to spend.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep, for sure. For sure.
The time to do that is Decon, because there's usually boxes behind the booth at Decon that we let people come back and rummage through. And
oh, really?
Ian loves that too.
Yeah. It's always fun working the booth. And
Ian
I don't
loves
think
everything.
Ian's very happy with you, Scott.
All right, a
I
couple
can
things.
tell I'm going to get an angry phone call after this.
just a mad beard.
Now it's time for What Did Dov Buy? Hey dude, what'd you get?
I got a box from Super 7 today.
Ooh.
And these I just
love these.
Next level amazing. So these are based
on
the pre-code horror. And this was, if I understand it correctly, this pre-code horror was, what was the name of the company? This was not the EC stuff. It was the Harvey, the books that came out in the UK.
Like Black Cat and
Black Cat, right. So here's Ghostly Weird. I mean, I never anticipated that anything like this would exist. And for them to take these, I mean, here's the cover of Black Cat.
That's my favorite one. Yeah,
cover.
The uranium.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were subject to like the same problems that EC is the company that did like Tales from the Crypt and Vault of Horror and Weird Science Fantasy that, that they had. So for those of you who don't know, there was a psychiatrist. All problems in society always sound, you start with a psychiatrist. His name was Frederick Wortham, and he wrote a book called, I should know the name of the book because I have wanted to buy a first
Seduction
edition.
of the Innocent.
There you go, Seduction of the Innocent. And a first edition is very rare. they sell like $500, $600. And then what's really rare about it is there's a page in the back with like a bibliography that was cut out of most of them. So if you get the one with that, it's like $500-$600. I always see it, you know, it's like I never pulled the trigger, but so he testified you know, in front of Congress and all this stuff, and he said that all these juvenile delinquents, what they all had in common is that they read comic books, and this started this whole this whole thing in like in the 50s of literally like these comic book burning parties, and that's when the comic code was started. And the comic code was something that a company had to adhere to in order to put the little label on it, and people wouldn't carry it if they didn't have the label. And that's when Mad Magazine ceased being a comic book and EC became Mad Magazine, and that went all the way until they were bought by DC and Warner Brothers.
See, look at all the good stuff that happened because of all the book burnings, you know?
Well, those comics are now worth a ton of money, and people are just paying bank for like these Black Cat comics. And
like, how much money are we talking about?
Oh, in mint condition, I mean, tens of thousands of dollars.
Really?
Yeah, like crazy. I'm sure it's probably even more. And original art, you know, especially like the EC books. I mean, there's, you know, but what was the Al Feldstein was one of the old EC artists, and you know, in one of the documentaries I saw, he said it was a great line. He said that Frederick Wortham said that all juvenile delinquents read comic books. That's what they had in common. And Al Feldstein said, well, they all drank milk also, so let's ban milk.
They all breathe air.
Yeah. All right, so the other thing I got was this.
Was there's only 3 of those? I thought there was
there was 4. Didn't I show the last one?
No, I think you only showed 3.
No, you left us hanging.
Sorry. I didn't realize how quickly those were coming because they made the announcement and then
there we go.
Yeah,
baffling.
Yeah, those are
and
so cool. The Black Cat one is my favorite. Yeah.
The backs
cool.
All the backs are like that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, those
And
are
then
cool.
Super 7 makes some very cool stuff.
Really?
And then I'm just a sucker for Snake Eyes, and they happen to put a Snake Eyes in every series now. I think they're up to like a dozen Snake Eyes. Dozen series.
They know
now.
what they're doing.
Yeah.
Snake Eyes, the Boba Fett. Anyway.
Because that's what you want to wear if you're a, you know,
if you're trying to be
soldier.
stealthy. Yeah,
that's right.
It's just like a highlighter.
This is my Thundercats, Snake Eyes.
So Super 7 also has 3 series of these characters called The Worst. And they just decided to make a run of bad guys. They're just all bad guys based on, I would say, like tropes that exist in all, you know, there's a Dracula looking guy, and there's a Skeletor looking guy, and a, you know, whatever, you name it. It's like, there's so many right now.
It looks like, to me, I always thought it was sort of like, let's kit bash something and then sculpt the kit bash.
Yeah, and to me, it's like, this is like an art toy to me, right? Because they're not based on anything. This is the one line that they've created that are created in-house. It's a conceptual line of like, what are these traditional bad guys? So they added to The Worst, they added the Weirdest. And the Weirdest are villainous rejects on a path of peculiar pandemonium. They're all musicians.
Is that the drummer or something? No.
Is that maybe they're not all? This one is the Rock and Roll Vampire King.
Okay.
The character design of that one is I thought it was really kind of amazing.
It's pulling all the best things from like early 2000s Adult Swim vibes, you know.
Yeah, it's really.
Are those is the artwork done by Ed Repka too?
Ed Repka did The Worst. Let's see if it says. Illustrations also Ed Repka. Ed Repka's great artist.
Amazing.
He did a lot of the modern Mars Attacks. Just great painter.
He did the Megadeth album covers.
I am obviously looking forward to like Zombeef right there.
Yeah, I'm on board for Zombeef.
Because that's. But this, I think. speaks to Mr. Rage here because this has a very Guar kind of
Yeah. That's
aesthetic.
it's called Gorier, right?
Gore,
Like
yeah.
yeah, it's like a. I saw that. I loved it.
And like Scott said, this show is basically Dov showing off the stuff that that I bought, and then you guys just saying, "Yeah, cool." So
Pretty much.
But it is cool. I saw those. I
cool.
really liked them.
Do you ever show anything and everyone just goes, "Oh"?
No,
they're
there's times
super
we're not
polite.
as enthusiastic. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
just like
Okay.
Chris
"Meh."
cuts all that out.
This
Janky's
is
like, I'm not even showing that because what is that?
this is the box I just got from Clutter from the Inaction show. Every
Oh,
Inaction
nice.
show.
What are we up to? 6, 7? I don't even know. Do you
11.
know? 11.
Yeah.
Geez.
Mhm,
All right.
mhm.
I think I bought 3 things.
Only 3?
So this is Brat.
Oh, I love this piece.
So this is by Credenda, Bo Van Greener, who is an artist, but he has made a lot of action figures for us, and that's sort of what he did for a while. So he made this Brat figure, which came out. What color was it? Was it green? Yeah. And it was sort of Bart Simpson inspired, and I love Simpsons inspired pieces. Inspired? Is that a word? Okay, never. Anyway,
No.
and what was interesting
Oh,
about
wow.
this one is that this is a 1 of 1 that he actually
Oh, wow.
did in yellow. It's a resin figure. I wonder if he hand cast these. He might have. If they're
I
super
imagine he
clean, if
probably did.
Oh.
And so I got the regular one from him directly, but this is I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool because it's a 1 of a
Yeah, it
kind.
looks great. I like the packaging is
Yeah.
really cool too.
It
He
is
did a nice
cool.
job.
Made in China.
Oh,
Oh,
made in
really
China. So he
smart.
did have these. Do you think he hand painted this, or do you think he only made 1 in yellow? I don't know. I wouldn't have made just
Artist
1.
proof 101.
He could have.
Yeah.
I think he could have sold a lot of these, but whatever. I got it. So. Jeez. What else? Because I can't live without potty joke. Got a Toilet Wars here. Mopper.
Okay. Nice.
And what's either fortunate or unfortunate is if you see all these on the back, like I have all of those.
Not only do you have them all, you encourage them all.
Yeah, it's just fantastic. Like, I think this one's my
So-
favorite. Is this white Emperor's Throne?
That's
toilet thing.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just unbelievable. And then the
So
last
this
thing.
might sound. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go
Obvious
on.
question. Can I interrupt you? I'm
Yeah.
doing it anyway. So hey.
Stop
I
interrupting
assume
me.
Most of the people that buy these Carter figures leave them. Don't take them out, right? Just leave them in the cards. How do you display those?
Oh, Scott's number one question.
That's the eternal question because I put everything on a card
Okay.
and and then people would be like, "Oh, I don't need the card," and I'm like, I spent more time on the card than I did on the toy in some cases,
Right.
and as you can see, this is my working display.
Okay.
And it's difficult to display carded figures.
I think it
Because
depends.
when I see some people, they'll buy something and then they rip it right off the card, and I'm like, "Ooh."
Well, there's different kind of people different kinds of collectors.
Sure.
I believe as art that this is mostly a conceptual medium, and
Okay.
I think that the card back is what brings the whole concept together.
Right.
I
Because
agree.
sometimes the resin figure is not the greatest quality. It's not about the quality. I think it's about the concept.
Right.
He's raising his hand. So as a conceptual medium, I think that's the thing. But there are people who collect action figures who have hundreds of action figures in a case with Darth Vader or whatever Tron or whatever movie that they're collecting, and then to have a Ron English, MC supersize or something else in 3 3/4 in that scale to display with them to interact, that works for them because that's how they display things. So it's more about having so if I have R2D2 and all these droids on the shelf, having, the Mopper droid on the shelf with it is probably cool to someone. As for me, I collect the Star Wars figures that I have. I do have loose ones too, but I have carded ones, as you can see. There's some back there. So I believe that this is the whole package. And I'll say, for the people who show up here trying to sell us their collections, if they've opened them, it's a very hard sell. I mean, what can you sell a loose figure for? Unless it's maybe in a bag and header card, then it's not so critical. It really depends what it is. Like, I think, Scott, some of your Ram Man figure, that's a good, I think that's an interesting exception to the rule, right? If someone showed up here with a Ram Man out of the package, I think, there you go. I think that thing could sell by itself for the same amount of money in the package or out, right?
Well, and now you're carding header card and bagging them for the last run you did, right, Scott?
Yeah, but they're so crummy. I'm saying it's basically saying, I dare you to keep it in this bag.
Right.
The original header card was so bad intentionally.
I liked it. I got a text from him. He's like, "Is this too derpy?" Chris says it's too derpy. Like, okay.
I did not say derpy. I said that piece deserves a higher level of treatment. And Scott's response was to draw a less engaged version. Say, "That's what I'm doing." I don't care. People already bought it.
All right, here's the last thing I got. Kelsius Collins did this trickster figure. It looks like a tarot card, and of course it's like,
oh, I didn't see that. I like him a lot.
My first love, Jar Jar. And now here's a good example. We manufacture this blister, Jack. So artists buy this from us, and we've created it so you can create a card back,
sort of a clamshell,
and then you can put it in the clamshell. The only thing I need to warn the artists out there is, because the beauty of this situation is, if you ship this item, you should wrap the figure before you put it in the cavity, because when it's shipped, it's been doing this, in the box, because of all the extra space. So the beauty of it is that you open it up, take the wrapping out, put the card back in, and then put it on your shelf, and you can see the blister got all scratched up. Well, guess what? I have 10,000 more of these. I can swap it out.
Well, so why is it more of an issue of it like scratching up and moving around in the sort of like resealable clamshell than it is in the regular carded one? Is just because people make it tighter, the blister size?
It is in the regular carded one too. So with my figures, I glue them to the card because I don't want it.
Oh,
so it just depends on how people do it,
So because making an inner blister, which any toy that you picked up at Target or Walmart would have an inner blister. So let's go back to the Super 7 figures. So this blister was custom made for this figure, but because tens of thousands of them, they also make an inner blister.
Right.
So it's taped in there or wired, or just uses, whatever, some sort of, gripping power to keep it in there.
Okay. But
also, if this was bouncing around, it wouldn't get hurt. It's just injection molded. It might get a little scratch, but it's negligible. Where what Janky was saying is, this toy, if it was rattling around, would lose its sort of like display quality. You'd have to sort of like play that little game with like the little ball to try and get it and then set it down. So even these figures that we make internally, which I will use this opportunity to pitch everyone on following us, on subscribing to our YouTube channel, because we are going to be giving away free to one subscriber at some unspecified time a complete set of all 5 of these golds, Ron English, numbered out of 20, a $500 value.
$500.
Go and subscribe. It doesn't matter how long you've been subscribed for. We will randomly choose from all the subscribers. Some people texted me, they're like, I unsubscribed and resubscribed, so I qualify. It's like, if you're subscribed, you qualify.
I got something this week. Can I show?
Sure.
something like that.
Do it.
This is from a guy, Simian Cheese, and it's Golden Balls. It's Sophia from Golden Girls.
Oh wow!
Awesome! That's great.
It's like a foamy, like a mad ball.
It's a mad ball.
That's
Oh my God.
hilarious.
Golden Balls.
Oh, I have to get one.
Yeah.
That's
And
amazing.
he made this one too in a faker colorway.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Wow, those are awesome.
Aren't these amazing?
Did he do all four?
No, he just did
Sophia.
for that. But I mean, he has different header cards, so this is fake Sophia. And he put the blue on there.
Unbelievable.
Wow, that's
great. Fantastic.
And now it's time for news and reviews with DKE Toys.
Just really quickly, I watched this documentary, which I also got on DVD. It's called In the Realms of the Unreal. I don't know if any of you have seen this one. It's a story about Henry Darger, and it's fascinating. And I bring it up because last week or the week before, 2 weeks ago, when we were talking to the Sucklord, and he was talking about making it, and I always tell him, like, hey dude, you've already made it. Like, you live in New York, you pay your rent, you don't work for anyone else, like, you make your art, like, that's it. And he's like, when am I gonna make it? Like, when am I gonna, like, like, when is? And it's like, dude, you're there. You're like the top 1% of like artists in the world. And so the story of Henry Darger is fascinating. He had this crazy, like, abused childhood. He was put in an orphanage, and then he, like, masturbated too much, and the Catholic priest, like, put him in they separated him from his sister, which he never saw his sister again, because his father went into some sort of hospice. This is in the early 1910s or something like that. And then he they put him in, like, the mental place, and then he ran away. Like, this was the time where, like, you could run away and just start a new life, because there was nothing.
Go ride the rails.
It's just totally.
Oh,
he became a janitor. He lived alone until he died in 1973. And when people went into his place after he died, he had a 15,000-page novel that he had written.
Yeah, I saw that movie.
Mind-blowing. And then his art is insane. I'm not sure if I would want it hanging on the wall, but he did a lot of tracing. The art was a lot of these, like, little girls, they were naked. They all had penises.
Yeah.
It was super weird. They're not even sure that he understood the difference between men and women, and, like,
a man and what? Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, and after he died, like, now these paintings are almost reaching about $1 million each. Wow. And he is considered the greatest outsider art painter ever. And his work is in collections. And I bring this up because a lot of artists watch the show, and after that conversation with the Sucklord, I mean, this is a guy who created his art to get by, or for whatever reason, we don't know. There's only 3 known photos of the guy, right?
Yeah.
And he created this body of work with these stories about these generals and these people killing the kids, and, like,
it's an epic. Yeah,
it's crazy. Like, can you imagine, like, a 15,000-page novel? It's they think it could be the longest novel ever written. Hundreds of paintings are this long.
I like there's a part in the movie where they're like, well, there's an ending where the 3 girls, they save the world, and then there's an ending where the world blows up. It's like there's one where the girls, they save everyone, and then the other one, everyone dies.
Yeah. So
couldn't figure out that. It couldn't stick the ending. He's like, I'm 15,000 pages into this. He's like, when I'm done with this, I'm going to unleash this on the world.
Yeah.
And he died.
So it's just truly fascinating. And if you're an artist, or if you're art aficionado, it just, it's really worth it.
Look at
All
what
right.
self-loathing can do for your career. I mean,
I love a good art documentary. I watch Beauty is Embarrassing, the Wayne White documentary, at least twice a year. I
so good.
sort of absorb, like, so when you find good documentaries that speak to you, even if it's got sad context like that one, I don't know, there's just something that they can awaken the story of other artists and how they work and stuff.
I'll watch any documentary about art or an artist.
Yeah.
Have you seen the one about Louis Wayne? That's really weird.
No.
Really? I think it's called The Electric Life of Louis Wayne's Cats or something. It's on Netflix. This is a guy that basically is responsible kind of for people's love of cats because he drew them in cartoons and things like that. He was a little eccentric too.
Are we sure that wasn't the Egyptians that are responsible for people's love of cats?
I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. At least that's the movie's thesis. How's that?
That's on Netflix right now.
I think so. Yeah,
I will definitely check that out. That sounds great. The interview that we just posted is going to be Luke Chu on the YouTube channel. So everyone
Really
please
good
check
interview
that
too.
out.
Him talking
Yeah,
about
he's the best.
the resist, resign.
oh yeah,
What was the first one? I'm sorry. Realize, right?
Realize, yeah.
Yep.
It was
a great
right
series.
after that one sold out. The first one sold out, and he gets pretty deep and philosophical about the meaning of that and toys, and it's an awesome interview.
Yeah, Luke's a really interesting guy.
Yeah, he's great.
What else? If you order something on the DKE Toys site and you just mentioned DKE Toys TV in the notes section, you will get a free invisible Sucklord. We are going to have a separate interview with Jack another time to find out why he's laughing about this.
I mean, look at it. I mean, it's very Sucklord. I'm not supposed to say his real name, Sucklord-ish, but yes.
Sucklordian.
Indeed.
Yes.
Make sure to follow us on DKEtoys.com, at DKEtoys.com on Instagram. If you're happy with us, leave us a Google review. If you're not, please don't. DKEToysTV at gmail.com if you want to email us and have any comments or questions for Janky to read on air. And if you guys could tell us where we can find you all, Jack, where do people find you?
Vinylpulse.com or at Vinylpulse on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Nice.
I am at Janky Toys on Instagram. I also have a couple good comments here.
Oh, yeah?
Ross Blair, again, piping in here saying that he loved Samuel's interview so much that he needs a regular segment on DKE TV. So for those SKE Industries, aka Samuel Kelmer,
I'll tell you
that interview that I cut down to 15 minutes of watchable television.
So that was the second time, right? We had interviewed him before and it
Second
totally
or
went
third.
sideways.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
This is the one we said, okay, this is your chance to do it.
Right, because I remember the first one he did, and I got mad at him. I was like, "Dude, you blew that! Like, this was your opportunity to, like, you know, sit there and answer my questions." He's like, "What?" And he just totally didn't understand. He was like, "I don't get what I did wrong." I said, "You're just standing there, like, jumping and screaming and like," and I said, "You need to listen to my question and then you need to answer it because people don't know the answer, and I'm going to ask you questions that I already know the answer to, but that's okay." And so actually we all watched the interview as a family the other day. He didn't remember it. Vera like had never seen it, and neither had like you know, my mom was there, and we just all watched it and we were just laughing.
It's pretty entertaining.
And, the subject did come up about him interviewing people, and then we thought, like, what if Samuel interviewed like the Sucklord or something? Like that would like, can you imagine the two of them like in a room talking? Like,
be great. Well, Ross Blair wants to see that. He also he's been very complimentary. Also said that DKE Toys TV is currently his favorite podcast. Keep up the great work, which is great. And then Funkotron said that Dov laughs like Burt Reynolds. And Funkotron is not wrong. There's a little bit of a Burt Reynolds in there. So.
Wow. You know, I am a child of the 70s.
Yeah. Anyway,
maybe,
so yeah.
Maybe not. The 80s,
I'm at Janky Toys, but interact with me through the DKE comment section because that's my favorite.
Excellent.
Scott, where
And
are you?
Ross Blair, thank you. I think he's our biggest fan. So
Yeah. Ross and Dave, Acoustic Records, are setting the record for comments right now. So I challenge others to beat them.
nice. Scott, where do we find you?
Go to barbarianrage.com. I'll give you a free digital comic book. Sign up for my newsletter for all upcoming toy drops and comic book and related ephemera.
Because you don't want to miss out when these come up, and you already did. If you didn't,
those are already gone. Those are already gone.
And you wouldn't have missed it if you were.
Way to taunt people, Janky.
What?
Everyone,
way to taunt people.
Look, this was a grail for so long, like, and I know a lot of people who love this piece. So when Scott put him out again, like, who knows if he'll ever do it again? This might be the last.
You snooze, you lose.
It might be. Well, after I put something out like that and it sells out, I always get one guy that's like, can you make like one more? And I'm always like, oh, please. I'm like,
Scott's
please
like
don't.
so over it. He wants to like slide down a razor blade into a vat of acid rather than make another one.
I know.
At my commission rate.
But I'll tell you what. These golden balls, these sold out immediately. And I was that guy. I'm like, any way that you could find it in your heart to please make one more for me, please.
Karma came back to you there.
Well, guess what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna text him right now too.
Can you do one in Boba Fett colors?
Yeah.
Boba Fett colors.
I need all 4 of the Cantina aliens dressed up as Sophia.
What a bunch of dicks.
All right, guys. Thank you so much, Jack. We really appreciate you taking the time. It's
Awesome.
nice to talk to
Sure.
you again.
Thanks for having me.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Okay.
Stay
Bye.
fresh, cheese bags.
How long were you preparing that comment?
All day.